Hello everyone, it's Georgia down in Australia, and this is a continuation of the Our Father Arting the Lord's Prayer Challenge event. We are up to the final line, not counting the Amen, of our Father prayer. And so today I am going to be arting Deliver Us from Evil. Now, I sort of have a rough idea in my head of what I want to do. A kind of rice paper collage around the outside. I'm going to go over it with white gesso, maybe do some stamping and just kind of dirty it up a bit. So the thinking is kind of all the evils of the world and God coming in and keeping us safe from all that. Now, I could have gone really full on and taken out, like the Halloween papers and made it really kind of scary, dark, but that's not where I want to go. So I've pulled out some rice papers. This is the Ciao Bella Blue Note collection. So it's actually like a jazz music kind of theme, but there's some really great images on it that I thought were kind of cool for this because they're not evil in themselves, but they're kind of like really grungy city. And I'm thinking, well, like this sort of signifies the world that we live in and how easy it is to sort of fall into the evils of the world, without saying that these things are actually evil in themselves, okay? So all the, overreactive internet people out there, I'm not saying that food and grocery stores are evil, but I'm just saying that, this is like the grungy world we live in and we need a lot of protection to keep us safe. So I've just ripped a few pieces from some of the rice paper sheets in the collection, and I'm sort of thinking of having these like this. And this one, even though it's sideways, I kind of like it like that. Once again, the subway itself is not evil. Please, I'm not saying Manhattan is an evil place. All right, everybody chill. But that's just, I kind of really like the imagery on that. So I'm just going to put some papers under here to protect the rest of the book so I don't go sticking pages together. And there is no reason why you can't just glue these things down. You might not want to use rice paper, you might want to use napkins, serviettes if you live in Australia, or you might just want to use paper, scrapbooking paper, pattern paper, gift wrapping paper, things you download on the internet, any sort of images. You can use anything to glue them with. I am using my favorite method, which is to use clear gesso. So I'm just painting a layer of clear gesso all over my page. Might get a bigger brush here. Covering the area where the rice paper's going, and then I'm popping the rice paper down, lining it up with the corner of my page here, and then just painting a little bit more of the gesso over the top and sort of pushing hard with my brush to sort of get rid of any air bubbles under there. Whoops, way too much there. Might have to share that around. So I'm just going to do that, pushing especially along the edges so that they stick down really well. And I'm just going to do that with the other pieces as well. So I wait until the gesso has dried, and now I'm going to give it a bit of a whitewash. And I do that by grabbing some white gesso, pop my brush in there. I then dip my brush into some water. And sorry, all of this stuff is happening off screen, there's not enough space. And with this really wet gessoed brush, I then paint over the top of all of this. Now, it will dry lighter than what it looks, but of course, if you want it more translucent, then put more water to less gesso. If you want to really white it out, put a lot of gesso and only a tiny bit of water. I'm just washing this out a little bit here, and on this one as well. Of course, you don't have to do this step if you want to keep the brightness of whatever papers you're using in your collage element. That's absolutely fine. I just like mine to be sort of faded off into the background a little bit, especially this really bright orange one at the top because it looks a little bit too cheerful, and I really want to grunge it up a bit. And while the gesso is still wet, I'm grabbing my black Distress Re-Inker, and I'm not even going to drop a drop, I'm just going to touch the dropper onto my paper. See, I've got this tiny little dot there, but when I then grab my wet brush and dab over it, it's very, very intense. I'm just spreading that out a bit, so I just wanted to grunge that up a bit more, give it a bit of grey. You could use paints for this. And of course, you don't have to do this step at all. I want to cover up a little bit of this grocery sign. Whoops. Okay, I'm a little bit not too happy about this bottom bit. I think I've made it a bit too dark. I'm just rubbing some of it off. But as it dries, it will dry a little bit lighter than this. So as you can see, the gesso has dried a lot lighter than when it was first applied. I'm now going to add some texture paste. Again, an optional choice. And you could do this with a stencil if you wanted to, but I just want to make mine as just sort of rough bits of random sort of, I don't know, textury stuff on my page. So I'm just using a palette knife and I'm sort of just dragging it along the page here and there, making sure that I don't drag it out too smoothly, because again, I am doing this as texture rather than just color. You could add some color to your texture paste if you wanted to. I'm leaving mine its natural sort of off-white. And I'm kind of scratching it in some places with my palette knife and just dragging it along. So it's just kind of, just a bit of a messy kind of, once again, grungy stuff. All the metallic noises are my palette on the side there. So not too much, and just to add some little bits of interest and texture to my page. So that's going to take a little while to dry. I'm not going to heat gun this because I don't want to sort of burn it and make it bubble up. So I let it dry naturally, which is what makes this sort of a really long process, because I'm letting all the layers dry on their own. So while that's drying, I'll do something else, and we'll get back to this in a little while. I'm now going to add just some little bits of washi tape here and there. Now it's a little bit difficult because most of my washi tape is still in my storage unit, so I don't have much of a choice, but this one will do. This is vintage newspaper, I believe this one's called. And I'm going to just kind of randomly stick a few bits around my page. And then I'm going to grab some paint, and I'm starting off with Dina Wakley's Cheddar. So I think this will work in well with some of these colours. And just popping a bit of the paint on my palette here. I'm going to water it down quite a bit. And with this watered down paint, I'm just going to paint some random little bits around the page on top of the texture paste, and just bits and pieces here and there, some on top of this washi tape. I might even, I don't know how this will go, I'll take this off, take off my little protective papers, if I water it down heaps, put it up here, I know, I'm going to grab my spray. This might work well. So I'm just going to pop this paper in to protect the rest of the book and put a fair bit of the paint here along the top. And then with my water spray, I'm going to spray it and hold it upright. I know it's hard to show on camera at this angle, but I'm holding it upright so that I get drips down the page, kind of like this. So I'm just letting it drip. Dabbing off this bit because it's a bit much. Adding a little bit extra up here because it's not dark enough for me. Once it sort of takes on a route down your page, it will keep going down the same way. So if you want it to go somewhere else, you need to kind of direct it a little bit. Okay, and then I'm just letting that dry naturally. I'm going to get a little bit of turquoise. There it is, it's kind of off screen at the moment. And just the same thing again, watering it down a lot and putting some bits of colour in different parts of my page. Totally random here. There's no rhyme or reason, there's no plan. And I might do the same on the other side. Just putting lots of the colour at the top of the page. And giving it a spray with my spray bottle. Letting it drip down the page a little bit. And so it has a life of its own. It decides where it wants to go. I don't want it there though, so just dab that away. Okay, and that I'm just going to allow to dry naturally. Now for anyone who's looking at this shape here and thinking, oh, I wonder what she's up to, I'm not actually up to anything. It's just kind of the way that it happened. And now that all of this is done, I'm sort of stepping back and looking at it and going, that's really a weird kind of big shape in the center there. So I'm going to mute that down by doing some stamping. And I'm grabbing a set of Ciao Bella stamps, and this one is called Unstoppable. And I like this one because it's got lots of cracks and messy stuff. And so this would go very well with my page. And I'm not even going to use a stamping block, mainly because, especially on this side, there's so much dimensional stuff on the back of the page that if I use a stamping block, it just, it doesn't stamp very well because I've got this sort of texture or three-dimensionalness to my page. So if I do some stamping without a block and I just sort of control the stamp with my fingers, I can sort of roll it around where I need it. So I'm putting this big sort of crack up here, and then I'm cleaning the stamp by just dabbing it all over my page to get more sort of grunginess going on. Just a little bit here, and I'm not even stamping so much as just sort of dabbing my page with the inked up stamp. So I'm not even transferring the image of the stamp, but I'm making my own just with the edge of the shards there, just to get this really rough kind of look along there. And on this side I might do a bit of this sort of broken stuff. So I'm really going for a not clear stamping look here, but just using the stamp as a way of just grunging up those empty spaces. Of course, you may look at me doing this and think I'm absolutely insane, and you may use your stamps in a traditional stamping manner and actually do some proper stamping on your page. All right, so that's kind of filled up some of those spaces. Because I am going to put something in the center. I'm not quite sure how that's going to work just yet. I haven't thought it through. And the final thing I want to do before adding my line or my words is just a bit of spattering. So I'm just watering down some black acrylic paint, loading up my paintbrush and just spattering around the page kind of randomly. So that's kind of a messy, grungy look. And now I'm going to put something. I have no idea what. I really have not thought this far ahead, but I'm going to put the Deliver Us from Evil line here in the center somehow. Okay, so I played around with a few different options and I've ended up pulling out a couple of these little vintage looking tags, and on one of them I've written Deliver Us and the other one from Evil, and I'm thinking of sticking them kind of like this. And this white sort of shape is still kind of bothering me. Don't really know what's going on there, how it all happened. So I kind of thought I might put some gold on the page so that there's like gold behind the Deliver Us from Evil. So there's kind of something, it's saying something, I don't know. It's really late at night now, and it's one of those, this has become one of those pages that I don't really know what I'm doing, don't know what the plan was. I don't know anything anymore. So I've just got this sort of burst of gold, and that might break up that sort of weird sort of shape that I've accidentally created on my page. We'll sort of see what that looks like once I've got the tags on. And these tags came with this very, very thin string, which I've never used because I always thought it was a little bit too thin, but I might use some of it today because I want something that's not too obtrusive. So I've just cut a little bit off and sort of doubling it up so it's a little bit more substantial. I'll pop it into my tag. Something like that. Just trimming this one a little bit. Then I grab my glue, a little bit of glue on the back. So I think it's going to go like this. I know my paint is still wet, but that's okay. And this might go down here. So that's kind of broken up that weird shape just a bit. It's still kind of there, it's still bothering me a little bit. So I might end up putting something on it. I don't know what at this point, but for now I'm going to call it quits and say this is my page. So this is Deliver Us from Evil. Mixed media page to sort of go all out as we get to the end of the prayer. So we've got one more page to do and then we'll be all done. So this has been what are all the things that I normally say. So this has been Deliver Us from Evil for Our Father Arting the Lord's Prayer on my Patreon and in my Facebook group God's Refrigerator. As always, we'd love to see yours, so all my social places are down in the description below. So if you create one of these, please share it and tag me, George's Bible, so I can come over and have a look. Thank you very much for joining me, and keep watching this space, or rather keep watching my Patreon and my, well, all my social places, because whatever I end up doing to this page, I think I might add something, I don't know, but if I do, I will have an update in all those other places. Okay, thank you very much for joining me, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.